Hey everybody, welcome to another award-winning episode of Phil and the Mic. I am Darrin Michael, and unfortunately, it's just me today. You're just stuck with me as Phil is actually halfway across the world in Qatar. The only Q, the only word with a Q that I know of that doesn't have a U after it. Qatar, a country in the Middle East somewhere, but he's there training with the U.S. men's soccer team, who has their first World Cup game on Monday, and he's getting them motivated, getting them excited. Honestly, I didn't even know he knew anything about soccer. So this is going to be a really, really interesting result. So we'll see what's going on over there. But excited to be back with everybody. I'm sorry that it's a little bit late in the week, but a lot of good things going on. I just wanted to mention my youngest daughter has started her varsity cheerleading career. She's only a freshman. She's on the varsity team cheering on the boys and girls basketball. We went to the boys game actually the other day, and it was incredible. The stadium or the arena that they have there is something I'm really not used to. It's like the arena type seats where it's all the way around, as opposed to where I grew up, where you would always have the janitor pulling out the stands before the game. There would be a whole bunch of stands on just both sides, and this one was just incredible. So I'm actually sitting up watching the game down. I felt like I was at a real game. Obviously, the level of play wasn't quite the same as a real game, but it was exciting, and their team won by 1 point. It was fascinating. It got my juices flowing again. I was yelling. I was telling my wife what was going on. I think she was getting really annoyed with everything that I was saying, but it just makes me realize how happy I am that I'm actually playing again. I mean, yeah, it's an over 40 game, so I can't quite operate the same way those guys do, but at least I'm out there, and at least I'm playing. And although I'm a little more hurt than usual, I've got the toe injury. Now I've got a heel injury on top of that, which I have no idea what happened there. I got to get to the doctor. But all good stuff. We're in the playoffs on our team, and we didn't play this Tuesday. We don't play next Tuesday because it's Thanksgiving. We play the following Tuesday because the nice thing was that we got a bye. And then if we win that game, we actually play December, I don't know, 6th, voting day here in Atlanta. And that's going to be the championship game, and I'm a little worried because that team is the only team that beat us. We're 8-1, and they won their last game by 53 points. So they're obviously able to put the ball in the hole, and it makes me a little bit nervous. So that's exciting news on the basketball front. Here is some other exciting news: Taylor Swift, and I got a story behind you. This whole Taylor Swift phenomenon, people are just going nuts. Everybody needs tickets, and everybody's complaining that they can't get tickets. So my oldest daughter, Brooke, she tells me, hey, you've got to sign up for this pre-sale so that you can get the tickets. I'm like, okay, great, great. I'll sign up for it. And my wife signed up for it. My other daughter signed up for it. So we all had these codes for this pre-sale, right? I get on at 10 o'clock. It says I'm in the queue. I'm like 2,000 plus people back. So I'm like, all right, I'll just keep it here, whatever. And eventually, I think around 4:30 or so, I finally get through and I can buy my tickets. So I get in there, I'm looking for tickets. The only tickets that were really left were either on the side of the stage or behind the stage. So I chose not to go with that. And I'm like, all right, whatever. So I learned that Capital One was also having like a cardholder exclusive where you could get tickets. So the next day that started at 2 o'clock. So both Brooke and I both went on, and I get in like right away. Like it only takes me 10 minutes to get in. It was incredible. And I start clicking on tickets. $199 a piece. I'm like, all right, I'll take six. Error. Okay, these tickets, $259. I'll take four. Error. Okay, how about these? $329. I'll take four again. Error. I literally did that about 50 times. The site just would not let me buy it no matter what I tried doing. So, I'm doing it. Brooke's doing it, I think, from school. And all of a sudden, I see that I got a charge for like $980 or whatever on my card. It popped up on my phone. And I'm like, oh, I guess we got Taylor Swift tickets. I thought, well, maybe one of the ones that I did went through. But it turns out she actually was able to get through. She got three tickets, spent 300 and some dollars a ticket. It is what it is. What are you going to do? And I said to them, I sat them both down and I said, listen, you know what? We spent all this money on tickets. I got an idea. Why don't we sell the tickets? If we could, let's say we could get, I mean, I think this might be a little high, but what if you could get 2,000 for a ticket? $6,000. You spent 1,000. I said, I'll even tell you what. I will let you guys have whatever we make. You pay me back the money, and then you guys can have whatever's left. So if, for example, we were able to get 2,000 a ticket and you make it $6,000, we only paid 1,000, I will let you guys both split $5,000. You can have that money, no problem. And you know what they said? Nah, I think we'd rather go to the concert. True statement. I would feel differently. My wife would feel differently. So instead, it looks like maybe the three of them are going. Maybe my niece is going to join them. I really have no idea. I will not be there. I do like some of Taylor Swift's songs, but um, her newer stuff is just, it's not for me. It's not for me. The old stuff that everybody likes is good, but the new stuff, what do I need to spend $300 to see Taylor Swift? I'm not interested. So anyway, that's what's going on with me. Award-winning show. That's what I mentioned. So I got to stick with that. Let's talk a little MLB awards. So you had the Rookie of the Year, the Manager of the Year, Cy Young, MVP. So lots of great awards. Rookie of the Year in the AL, you had a guy named Julio Rodriguez. Definitely deserved it, hands down. My guy from the Orioles, Adley Rutschman, finished second, which I thought was also well deserved. And I'm really excited about that because I think he's a heck of a player. But the interesting thing about Julio Rodriguez is that he is the second player ever with 25 home runs, 25 stolen bases, and an 800 OPS in his rookie year. Never guess who the first guy to do that was. You said Mike Trout? Good job. Good job. It was Mike Trout. So this guy's in some good company. So we'll see if he ends up being a good player. I mean, you never know with these rookies a year. Maybe, they come up, they just have a great season, then they get adjusted, acclimated to what's going on, and you really realize that they're not very good. In the NL, Michael Harris from the hometown Braves won. And the interesting thing about this, he had a nice season too, 19 home runs, 20 stolen bases. He beat Spencer Strider. It's actually the 8th time that a pair of teammates finished 1 and 2 in the Rookie of the Year voting, which I think is pretty incredible. And I think that says a lot for their farm system if they have two guys that can actually finish 1-2. So congratulations to those guys. Very, very well deserved. Now, the Manager of the Year, it brings up an interesting issue in my mind. And that is in the AL, Terry Francona won it with the Indians, which, again, all of these awards I think were completely, completely well deserved. It's actually his 3rd Manager of the Year award in 10 years. And I know he's won at least one World Series. And then you got Buck Showalter with the Mets, who actually won his 4th award in his career with his 4th different team. So the question is that enough to get these guys in the Hall of Fame? I know they've both won World Series. I know they both have multiple Manager of the Year awards. Bucks, I think, is even more impressive, being that he's won it with 4 different teams. I think that's super, super impressive. So is it enough to get these guys in the Hall of Fame? My answer is yes. I mean, these guys are obviously setting a high bar for managers. I mean, to win 3 in 10 years, to win 4 in your career. I mean, it just goes to show you that you're a damn good manager. I'm just putting it out there. So congratulations to those 2 guys. Really exciting. And Cy Young, I know nobody was surprised by the Cy Young. You've got Justin Verlander at age 39, just an ageless wonder, guy that just opted out of his $35 million a year contract, I think because he thinks he can get more, which is incredible. He wants one of those Max Scherzer deals, which is what, 3 years, 125 million or something. And you know what? He'll probably get it. I mean, who pitches like that at age 39 besides, let's see, Nolan Ryan, Roger Clemens? Was Greg Maddux 39 when he was doing that? I don't think so. So the dominating year that he just had, his lowest ERA that he's ever had in his entire career. I mean, it's pretty incredible. And then you got Sandy Alcantara from the Marlins, who led the league in innings pitched and a whole bunch of other categories. I think he really deserved it too. Now, the interesting thing about these 2 guys winning the Cy Young is that they were both unanimous. And you might say, it doesn't seem like a big deal, but in the history of these awards, It's happened 2 times. And the other time was probably one of the greatest baseball pitching seasons ever. And that was by Bob Gibson and Denny McLain. Now, what's so great about those? Well, for one, Denny McLain was the last person to win 30 games in a season. Granted, these guys pitched a whole lot more. I think he pitched about 325 innings that season, and Bob Gibson probably did the same. But he was 31-6 with a 1.96 ERA. He won the Cy Young and the MVP. Then you've got Bob Gibson, who not only did he go 22-9, he set a record for lowest ERA in a season at 1.12 with 13 shutouts. Wow, unbelievable. And what did he do? He won the Cy Young and the MVP in the same season also. So, honestly, I mean, I think that sets the bar pretty high. But when you think about it, that just shows you the kind of season that Verlander and Alcantara had compared to their peers in their respective leagues. So I was really, really excited to hear that, and not surprised at all. Those guys definitely deserved it, and I don't even think anybody else was close. So they both got all the first place votes, which means unanimous. Then you've got the MVP, and I know that people were pushing for Ohtani on the Angels, and my point has always been, listen, he's on a crappy team. He might be a great player, but he's on a crappy team. Yes, he's doing something that nobody's ever done before, but just because he's doing something nobody's ever done, does that really make him the most valuable player in the league? It doesn't. It doesn't. I think the most valuable player has to translate into some kind of success. I mean, I know that Andre Dawson won the MVP years ago when he was on the last place Cubs. I mean, the team was just terrible. The guy hit 49 home runs. His stats were pretty absurd compared to everybody else, and he probably did deserve it. But it really brought up a good argument, and that is, should your team be good? Should you contribute to your organization winning games? And I think that's part of it. And when you look at Judge, who won the MVP, not only did he break the AL record and hit 62 home runs in a season, which is miraculous by itself, but I truly think he single-handedly kept the Yankees alive and in the playoffs. The Yankees they just weren't that good. That's what it turns out. I mean, they didn't do well in the playoffs. Yeah, they hobbled to the finish line. They were up so many games. They were on pace to win a ton of games. Did they even win 100 games? I don't even know. So did Judge deserve it? I mean, hands down. I mean, he had such a great season. He was the leader of that team, led them in the playoffs. And then in the NL, you've got Goldschmidt that finished first. You got Machado who finished second, who had a nice year, but Goldschmidt was just incredible. He really, really was incredible. And they put together that long streak of wins. And he was just a man. And, I thought it was kind of interesting to learn that this was only his first MVP. I'm thinking to myself, this guy is consistent. He's a consistent, great hitter year in and year out. So how he only won his first MVP, I don't know. But incredible performance. Now, our next big thing that we have to look forward to is Aaron Judge and his contract. Now, allegedly, the Yankees have offered again. I don't know what that contract is going to look like. He's 30. So, the Yankees have, they had that silly Giancarlo Stanton contract where the guy's making $30-some million a year, probably until he's about 75. And you can't get out of that. Baseball contracts are guaranteed. What are you going to do? So, my guess is that you're looking at Judge getting probably a 7-year deal, maybe 8 years at what, 35 million tops out at. So it's still a substantial increase. I mean, it's one of those few times where a guy actually bet on himself and actually made the right move. There's so many times where guys are like, yeah, I'm just going to play for my contract, and then they suck ass, and there goes that. So congratulations on him. Congratulations on whatever contract he's going to be offered. I hate the Yankees, but I do hope that he stays there because I'd have trouble seeing him in anything other than pinstripes. So we shall see what happens. I'm excited. Now, get into what I'm really excited about, and that is the contemporary baseball era nominees was put out there. Now, it was put out there, I think, about a week ago, week and a half ago, something like that. We just didn't get a chance to get to it. But I figure, now we'll get to it. Now, these are guys that I watched play when I was growing up. And most of these guys I've seen live. And most of these guys I've got autographs from, which is nice. So the list is as follows: Albert Bell, Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, Don Mattingly, Fred McGriff, Dale Murphy, Rafael Palmeiro, and Curt Schilling. So it's a great group. It's a great group. Curt Schilling, I've met face to face. Rafael Palmeiro, I've met face to face. Dale Murphy, I've met face to face. Don Mattingly, I got his autograph. I snuck on the field at spring training. I can't even remember what year that was. It had to be back in the 80s. And I can remember the coolest thing about that is I'm watching batting practice. Behind they got the cage that surrounds the batter's box, and I'm standing there watching batting practice next to Billy Martin on the field, and I'm like, oh my God. But I didn't get his autograph. I didn't ask to get Billy Martin's autograph, but instead, Don Mattingly got out of the batting cage and I got his autograph. And he was just an absolute stud way back then. But when I look at this list of guys, you basically can put it into a couple categories. And you've got on one hand the guys that probably deserve it, but they weren't really compilers to the point where they would get in. And then on the other hand, you've got the guys that are kind of known as, cheaters or boisterous or not friendly or whatever. So that's kind of the two categories that I put these in, and you've got the one category, you've got the alleged steroid guys, which is Bonds, Clemens, and Palmeiro. Then you got the outspoken guy, Curt Schilling, and then you just got the a-hole, Albert Bell. I mean, this guy is just not nice. He was just not friendly. Nobody really liked him. The sports writers didn't like him. The fans like how he played. The people that knew what kind of person he was didn't really like him. I think he's a hell of a player. I always thought he was a hell of a player. I remember that season when he had 50 home runs and 50 doubles. I mean, how often do you see that where a guy has 100 extra base hits? I mean, that's a legendary season. He was unbelievable in the 90s. He was one of the top players in the game. I'm one of those guys that, when you look at the steroid scandal and people talk about the purity of the game, and I know Phil and I have a big difference of opinion on these things. I love Barry Bonds. I love Roger Clemens. I love Rafael Palmeiro. And honestly, I could care less if they did steroids. But when you really think about it, Barry Bonds is accused, but he was never actually found guilty of using steroids. There's just no proof. There's no proof. Roger Clemens is the same thing. He was accused, but that's it. It was just accused. He wasn't found to have used steroids. He wasn't kicked out of baseball. There's nothing like that on those two guys. Now, Rafael Palmeiro is a little different. And I'm sure you all remember when he was there, he was at the Senate trial and he goes, I have never used steroids in my career. And little did he know they were sitting on a positive steroid test from him. So the guy just had mud all over his face. And I've talked to my mom about this a lot of times. And it's like, who was giving this guy advice? Listen, you were at the end of your career. All you had to do was admit it. Yes, listen, I wasn't healing very well. I decided to try using steroids. I know it was wrong. Forgive me. The one thing that we should all know about baseball is a very, very forgiving sport. Remember our man Steve Howe, who was hooked on cocaine. How many chances did he get? Like 8 chances. A-Rod gets suspended for an entire year, comes back, and now look at him. I mean, does anybody even realize that he was suspended for a year? I think he's up for Hall of Fame voting this year. I can't wait to see how many votes he gets. It's like this was all put in the past, these kinds of things. So, I look at things a little bit differently. Curt Schilling, yes, he's outspoken, but honestly, who really cares? I don't care what this guy has to say. We're looking at his baseball career, not his mouth post baseball. That's what it's based on, and Albert Bell is the same thing. It's on his career. Is he a Hall of Fame caliber player? The answer is yes. He definitely is. But not being well liked means that you're not going to get the votes. So it's your own fault. It's your own fault if you don't get in. I think you deserve it, but you're not nice to the people that are voting on you. They're not going to put you in. So it's going to be interesting, and I look forward to seeing how these guys do, because I know Bonds and Clemens, this was their last year on the ballot. I think it was Schilling's last year on the ballot too. They all got a substantial amount of votes. But if you've got a guy like Harold Baines who never got more than 5% of the vote in the Hall of Fame voting, and then he gets in with the Veterans Committee, probably the contemporary baseball era nominees, or you got a guy like Bud Selig, who was the commissioner during the steroid era, get in. I mean, come on, you got to let these guys in. You got to let these guys in. Then you got guys like Fred McGriff. Okay, Fred McGriff is a compiler. That is exactly what he is. Now, I mentioned that none of these guys these guys are kind of like non-compilers. They were compilers, but they didn't get to that magic number. It's unbelievable. I think Fred McGriff had 493 home runs. So he's right there. He's 7 away from allegedly the magic number. 500 has always been the one. Oh, you hit 500 home runs, you get 3,000 hits, you automatically get in. But let's be honest, it's not as impressive as it once was. If you're able to play for 20 seasons, that's 25 home runs a year. Is that really impressive? No. 3,000 hits, it's the same thing. You play for 20 years, that's only 150 hits a season, Craig Biggio. Do you really deserve to be in for that? I think we're going to see a shift away from the compilers because just because you're a compiler doesn't mean that you're a Hall of Famer. Is Fred McGriff a Hall of Famer? Great question. The crime dog, Fred McGriff, the crime dog. I saw him play. He was a great hitter. Tall, lanky. He had a nice swing. I liked his game, but I don't know. I mean, when I think of Hall of Famer, I think of a guy who was the best of the best. Was Fred McGriff the best of the best? No, he wasn't. Yeah, he played at a time where there were a lot of great first basemen. I mean, we can be honest about that. But was he ever one of the greatest? No. Was he one of the better first basemen? Yeah, he was. He definitely was one of the better first basemen. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how people vote, because if people are going to vote away from the controversial figures, then Fred McGriff gets in. Then you got a guy like Don Mattingly. I mean, how great was Don Mattingly for a handful of seasons? Only a handful of seasons, because the back injury forced him to retire. But when he was great, he was great. He was unbelievable. He was a fantastic hitter overall. So the question is, should he be penalized because he got injured and didn't have enough stats, enough great years? And in baseball, it's questionable. I mean, you do have a few guys that have gotten in. The one guy that comes to mind is Kirby Puckett. But Kirby Puckett, I think, played 10 seasons, and he had 10 great seasons. I mean, this is not a guy that kept trying to hang on like Don Mattingly. Don Mattingly didn't have 10 great seasons. He might have had 6 where he was legitimately one of the top first basemen in the game. Is that enough to get in? I don't know. Played for the Yankees, was the captain of the Yankees. A lot has to be said about that, but I don't know. Again, we have to see what's going to happen. Then you've got my pick, and that's Dale Murphy. And I'm scratching my head trying to figure out why he hasn't gotten in. And it's interesting because in the 80s, he was literally the top player. He was an unbelievable player. He had back-to-back MVP awards. Here's the problem with Dale Murphy. He hit 398 home runs. I think he was 2 home runs short of 400. So whereas he wasn't anywhere near that magic number, home runs with a 3 in front of it versus a 4 in front of it, it does make a big difference. I'm not really sure why. It's like, I think it might be psychological. Like, oh no, I don't want to spend $10 for that. Oh, but it's not $10. It's only $9.99. Oh, then I'll buy it. It's the stupidest thing, but I think that might be how people are looking at it. So I don't know what's going to happen here. If it was up to me, I would vote yes on Bonds. I would vote yes on Clemens. I would vote yes on Murphy. I would vote yes on Curt Schilling. I'd put 4 guys in personally. But do I think that potentially they all deserve it? Yeah, I think you've got 8 really, really solid candidates. Now watch it be like Bell, Mattingly, and McGriff, and I'm totally wrong. But I think it's a great group. It's going to be exciting to hear. I think it happens. I think the announcement is December 6th or 7th, something like that. So it's going to be really interesting to see. And I'm excited about it. I'm really, really excited about it. I like that. I have autographs from all of these guys, except for Albert Bell. I sent to him in the mail, and I don't think they're real. I can't imagine a guy like that signs autographs. It's just, it doesn't make any sense. But you never know. You never know. I don't think it's real. But I got everybody else, and so I'm rooting for all these guys, and I do like the underdogs. But in this case, I think that Bonds and Clemens, I mean, I think it's a shame that they haven't gotten in, but that's just me. Anyway, so that's the award-winning part. Let's move on to a little college football. And I know Phil's not here, and Phil is really the expert when it comes to football, but there's a couple things I want to talk about. And the game that really sticks out at me last week is number 25 Washington beat number 6 Oregon 37-34. And the question is, does this knock them out of the playoffs? Does this knock them out of contention? And the answer is no, it doesn't. It really doesn't. Now, the Pac-10 or Pac-12 or whatever you want to call it, they're actually pretty tough this year. And surprisingly enough, because the Pac-12 doesn't get a whole lot of recognition, they do have some decent football teams. I mean, granted, listen, Oregon got absolutely obliterated the first game of the season. And they would probably be in the hunt for the playoffs if they hadn't just lost to Washington, who's a decent team. But let's talk about who else is there, right? You've got USC at 7-1, you've got Oregon at 6-1, you've got Utah at 6-1. So it's a possibility, even though there's only 2 games left in the season, it's a possibility that any of them win the Pac-12. You look at the games they have left. You've got USC, who's playing actually this weekend versus number 16 UCLA. Now, they say it's an away game, which is interesting for 2 colleges based in Los Angeles. But that should be an interesting game. And then they have number 18 Notre Dame, who everybody was writing off, and then somehow they've been playing good ball. They've got a backup quarterback, and they're not a great team, but they're a solid team. So, USC has got a couple more challenging games. I think they're both winnable games, but more challenging games, which I think would pad their resume. So, you're looking at USC coming out of the Pac-12 if they can win these next 2 games. Then you've got Oregon, Oregon actually plays number 10 Utah this week. So that is a really, really exciting game. And that's actually one of Phil's games of the week. So I can't wait to talk about that a little bit more. And then they play 23rd ranked Oregon State. So they've got a couple of good games too. Then you've got you've got Utah, and they play obviously number 12 Oregon, and then they play Colorado. Colorado's not a very good team. So the way that I see this happening is I think USC is going to win their 2 games. I think they're going to win the Pac-12. And when we look at the playoffs, you've got UGA that's clinched their division, and so they're going to face probably LSU. LSU has a leg up on everybody else in the other division. They've got a couple really tough matches. They've got University of Alabama Birmingham, which I think they're playing their JV girls team next week, so that should be a tough game. And then they got Texas A&M, they're just not a good team this year. So you've got 2 extremely winnable games for LSU. So they're probably going to win their next 2 games. And it looks like they're going to be facing the number 1 UGA at the end of the season. Now, the question is this. If LSU does end up winning their division and they lose their final game to Georgia, do they make the playoff? Well, here's an interesting question, right? They're going to play them two weeks in a row. They're going to play them the last game of the season, and then they're going to play them in the SEC championship. So I wonder what needs to be done for LSU to get into the Final Four. And my guess is they just have to beat them in one of those games. So we're looking at LSU going 3-1 in the last 4 games, and then I think they could probably get the 4th playoff spot. But then again, you got to think about USC. If they're coming out of the Pac-12, especially winning 2 games in a row, they're probably going to leapfrog over LSU But what do you say if LSU beats basically an unbeatable Georgia team? So it's really, really tough to figure out what's going on. Then you've got Ohio State, who plays Michigan upcoming. And the winner of that game also is going to win the Big Ten, and they're going to be in the Final Four. So who's going to win that game? I think it was Michigan last year. They beat them. They beat Ohio State for the first time in 100 years. I don't know, but I think OSU is going to win. I think Georgia is not going to lose. I think they're too good. I don't think LSU could possibly come close to them, even though LSU I think is a decent team. And then you've got TCU that has a weak schedule. They're currently ranked number 4. I think they're going to slide into the 3rd spot, and then I think USC slides into the 4th spot. So my guess is that it's going to be game 1, UGA versus USC, and then game 2, Ohio State versus TCU. Probably looking at, my guess is UGA, Ohio State, and then you're probably looking at UGA winning that game probably by 2 touchdowns. So that's probably, in my mind, how it's going to end up. I just think that UGA, surprisingly enough, is a great team, and they're looking at a back-to-back championship. It took them a long time to win a championship, and now they're at the top. You know, you've got Stetson Bennett, the fourth. A friend of mine was asking me, "Hey, do you think he's going to be a good NFL quarterback?" And I said, "I don't know if he's going to be an NFL quarterback." I mean, the guy has definitely improved over last year. Last year, I thought, you know, he did enough and he was decent, but this year I think he actually is actually a good player. He's not Heisman Trophy caliber. He's not going to win any kind of major awards, but he should be able to lead his team to victory, which means he will be drafted and he'll be a backup quarterback. I mean, you could be like who is it, Chase Daniel, that in his 13 seasons made $67 million, and I think he's started 5 games, something like that. Not a bad way to make a living. I'll carry a clipboard for 67 million. Jesus, I'll carry a clipboard for $67. But anyway, so we'll see what happens there. It's exciting though. It's a great time of year, the end of the season, and there's still some tough games left, and I'm loving it. I'm loving to see what's going on. So excited there. Let's talk about Phil's big 3. He sent them to me, so let's go through them. He feels pretty confident this week, and I'm looking at his picks, and I'm excited about him. He's got number 7 USC, -2 at number 16 UCLA, driving across the road, and he's taken USC with given 2 points, and I agree with him. I think this is a great team. Their quarterback, I think, has Caleb Williams. I think he's got 38 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. I think he's going to be one of the guys standing on the, one of the final, I don't know how many guys they take for the Heisman, 3 or 4 guys, but he's having a phenomenal year. And I don't think a whole lot of people know about that, but I think USC I think they're going to dominate this game. I think that UCLA is a good team, but USC, I think they can see the future. They can see the writing on the wall. Hey, we're going to finish in the top 4. We just got to finish this thing out. I think they believe that. They want to get into that top 4 game and get smoked by Georgia. So I think the motivation's there. I agree with Phil. I think USC -2, take it all day long. Number 10, Utah at number 6, Oregon? Is that what they're ranked now, or 12? I think they're down to 12. I'm looking at that and I'm like, something seems odd to me. Oregon was number 6. They were undefeated, only losing to Georgia before they lost a heartbreaker last week. So the odd thing with this is, how is Oregon getting 2.5 points at home? What the hell is going on here? I mean, Vegas is screaming for you to take Oregon on this. And you know what? Phil's saying, hey, they're going to give me 2.5 points. I'll take it. I mean, Oregon they're pissed off right now. They were knocked out of the playoff. They are not happy, and they're going to take out their revenge at home against a very good Utah team. So they're getting 2.5 points at home. They're going to win this game outright. I feel very confident about that. Phil feels very confident about that too. And then Phil's last game of the week is Illinois at Michigan. He's not convinced that Michigan is a great team. I'm not convinced either. I think they're a good team. I think they beat up on the bad teams. I'm not saying that Illinois is a good team, but I don't think they're as bad as 17.5 points. So Phil and I both agree we're going with Illinois 17 plus 17.5 points at Michigan. The best bet, 100% is the USC. Put your money on that game. If you want, take a parlay, a Pac-10 parlay, take USC -2, take Oregon +2.5, bet the house. You're going to be making some serious cash. I'm taking those 2 games this week. You need to take those also. So some good games coming up in college football. Let's shift a little bit. Let's get into NFL. Got 5 things I want to talk about based on last week. And question number 1, who the hell is D'Onta Foreman? Who the heck is this guy? I have no idea. I looked him up and I saw that in 2017 he was a 3rd round draft pick from Texas. All right. Texas produces some strong running backs. So I looked him up a little bit more. Hey, what was his senior season or his junior season? Actually, I think he went pro after his 3rd season. 2016 at Texas, he rushed 323 times for 2,028 yards and 15 touchdowns. How the hell have I never heard of this guy? He ran for 2,000 yards in college. I know it's not as difficult in college to do, but my God, those are some serious numbers. So anyway, what has he done since Christian McCaffrey was traded? Well, he went for 118 versus Tampa Bay. He went for another 118 and 3 touchdowns versus Atlanta. Cincinnati, they were getting blown out 35-0 at half, so he only carried the ball 7 times. But then they played Atlanta again, 130 yards and a touchdown. So this guy's unstoppable. And why is it? Well, he was finally given a chance. He's finally the main man, and he's showing what he could do. And what he could do is he can be a stud. Plain and simple. That's what it comes down to. So I'm loving D'Onta Foreman. I don't really know a whole lot about him other than he's on a terrible team and he's playing great ball. So watch out for this guy. Hopefully he continues. Vikings Bills, number 2. Did anybody out there watch this game? Oh my friggin' Lord. Wow. This was unbelievable. You know, it was crazy to think that Buffalo was up 27-23. The Vikings had the ball 4th down on the 1-foot line, which was just unbelievable. 1-foot line. So they hand the ball off to Cook and he gets stopped. Now, the interesting thing about that is it seems like the Bills actually had 12 guys on the field and that was not picked up and it was not called. Interesting, right? So what happens? There's 45 seconds left on the clock. So they're basically, the Bills are all in their own end zone. They're hiking it from the 1-foot line. And what happens? It's a bad snap. The ball's fumble Rooski. And what happens? Miraculously, the Vikings, who had just been shut down on 4th down with 45 seconds to go, they recover the ball in the end zone for a touchdown. Are you friggin' kidding me? Wow. Now, the way this game is going, anything could obviously happen. There's 41 seconds left on the clock. They kick the ball off, and what happens? The Bills drive down the field. They kick a field goal with 2 seconds to go to tie the game up at 30. Oh, my God. Wow. Unbelievable ending of the game, but the game's not over yet. The game's not over. So the Vikings win the toss. They elect to receive. Now, we all know that on the first possession, if you score a touchdown, the game is over. Vikings drive down the field, and what do? They kick a field goal. Here I am thinking, oh my God, I thought that the Vikings had this in the bag, but now the Bills are getting the ball. They're going to run down the field, they're going to score a touchdown, or they're going to tie it, go to double overtime, whatever the case may be. So what happens? Exactly like I thought. The Bills are driving, and they're moving the ball very easily on the Vikings, who are probably exhausted. And what happens? Josh Allen throws the ball down the field, deep pass into the end zone, and he gets picked off for the 2nd time of the game, ending the game and keeping the Vikings' miraculous season going, in which they're 8-1, surprisingly. Kirk Cousins, turns out the guy can win a big game. Who would have thought? Who would have thought? Really, really exciting game. So, wow, unbelievable. And I'm so glad I got to watch the end of that. Number 3. I love this stat. I was watching the Cowboys game the other day, and they were playing Green Bay, and this stat comes up on the TV, and I had to take a picture of it just in case something crazy was going to happen. And it was going into the 4th quarter, and it said on the TV, it said Cowboys are 195-0 when leading by 2 touchdowns going into the fourth quarter all time. And I thought, oh God, they had to go there. They had to go there. And I'm just thinking, okay, Aaron Rodgers is probably sitting there watching the TV on the sideline saying, nah, this is not going to happen. So what happens? They're up on Green Bay 28-14. And what does Green Bay do? Green Bay scores 14 points while holding Dallas to 0 in the fourth quarter. High score at 28. And what happens? Green Bay kicks the field goal in overtime, stops Dallas, wins the game 31-28. Turns out the Cowboys are now 195-1 when leading by 2 touchdowns going into the fourth quarter. Scott, my friend, sorry, bud. Cowboys they just can't do it. Green Bay's not a good team. They're really not. It's not that they don't have good players. They've got Aaron Rodgers. But my God, they don't surround him with anything. I mean, they've got receivers, but these are not great receivers. So, they're not having a great season for obvious reasons, but they did beat the Cowboys, and I think that's pretty sad. Number 4, Washington. Don't call me the Redskins. You know what? I am going to call them the Redskins because Commanders, stupid. It's so stupid. They've been called the Redskins for 100 years. I can't change. They handed the Eagles their first loss of the season, easily beating them 32-21. Washington had 4 field goals, 2 of more than 50 yards. Eagles had 4 turnovers, 3 fumbles, and an interception. It just goes to show you, man, you don't have to put up big numbers if you're getting the ball in somebody else's territory. When you look at the stats, Washington averaged 3.1 yards a carry, not exactly lighting it up. And our boy Heineke, get me a Heineke to drink. He only had 178 yards passing. I mean, it was nothing spectacular at all. But when you don't have to do much, it's not that hard to win. So you can't turn the ball over. That's really the key to winning in the NFL. You cannot turn the ball over. You got to play good defense. And that is something that the Eagles didn't do. And I'm not an Eagles fan. And it was only a matter of time before they lost. It's not like they were going to go 17-0. They're a good team. Phil thinks they're a Super Bowl bound team. I personally don't. I think they're good. I don't think they're great. Number 5, the Bucks beat the Seahawks 21-16. After beating LA Rams the week before 16-13. I think they had lost 4 games in a row. So are they starting to come alive again? I don't know. I have no idea. I have given up on trying to figure out the Bucks. They can't really put any points on the board. Their defense really isn't very good. Did they get lucky? Are they starting to turn things around? I got no answer. I am going to say it's more luck than anything else. I mean, beating Seattle, I don't think that's so impressive. I mean, Seattle's been playing much better this year. Beating the Rams, come on, everybody's beating the Rams now. They're terrible. And now they don't have Cooper Kupp for the rest of the season. He's out with an injury. So forget it. Their season they might as well just pack it in. They're just done. They're absolutely done, which is funny since they won the Super Bowl last year. But I think the Bucks are just getting lucky. I think they're still going to win their division, but I just don't know if they have enough to go anywhere in the playoffs. I mean, I think they were my pick to get to the Super Bowl. So I hope they do. I just don't think so. I don't think so. And, maybe now that Tom Brady is divorced, I mean, his divorce, I guess, went through a couple weeks ago and he's won 2 games since. So maybe all that is off of his plate. And so maybe now he's feeling good. I really don't know. But they are going to win their division and they are going to make the playoffs. And, we'll see if they get lucky. They're going to need to. So let's talk about game ball. Quarterback, Pat Mahomes. 20 of 35, 331 yards, 4 touchdowns, and a 27-17 win over Jacksonville. Pretty impressive. Saquon Barkley, 35 rushes for 152 yards and a touchdown, and a 24-16 win over Houston. I mean, neither of those are really good wins, and that took a lot of carries to get there. And then you got Jefferson on the Vikings, 10 catches, 193 yards, 1 touchdown in a 33-30 win over Buffalo. For as exciting as these games were, I'm going to give it to Justin Jefferson, just because, they beat Buffalo at Buffalo 33-30, and he was a huge part of that. He might not have scored a whole bunch of touchdowns, 10 receptions, 193 yards. That really helped him. He came up with a lot of big plays when they needed it. And him coming alive is huge for them, and it's really exciting to see. So I'm giving Phil's game ball to Justin Jefferson. And then let's talk about fill up your bank account. There's a lot of good games this week. Here's what he picked. Browns plus 8.5 at Buffalo. Now, the interesting thing about this is Buffalo is expecting somewhere between 4 and 6 feet of snow. Feet. Wow. I'm 6 feet tall, so basically it would come up to my head. That's a little concerning if you ask me. Buffalo is coming off 2 losses in a row. The Browns are definitely a team that's hit or miss, hot and cold. So I don't know personally which way to go. He likes the Browns getting 8.5 points. I don't know. It's on a neutral field. It's in a dome, so that doesn't really come into play. So when you look at that, I don't know. I don't think the Bills, maybe they're just losing it. I don't think they're going to lose this game, but I happen to agree with Phil, and I think this game is probably going to be a lot closer than people think. I don't think it's going to be a 1 or 2 point game. I think it might be a touchdown game, but I can see the Browns keeping the ball on the ground with Chubb, who's amazing, and even Kareem Hunt, even catching some balls out of the backfield. I see them doing some good offensive damage as long as they're not turning the ball over. So Browns plus 8.5 is a good pick. Jets are at New England. Jets are getting 3.5 points. Now, this is an interesting game because the Jets just played New England a couple weeks ago. They lost to them, and they lost to them by what, 5 points maybe? And it was a game where I don't think our guy Zach Wilson really played very well, but the team itself is playing good ball. I mean, the team just beat Buffalo. They're playing really well. They're 6-3, whereas I know that there were some people out there that thought they were going to be 0-9 at this point. I mean, this is a team that's legitimately fighting for a playoff spot. And I think in the end, it comes down to, can Zach Wilson be consistent? Can he not turn the ball over? Because their defense is really, really good. And granted, they're playing against Bill Belichick, and Bill Belichick just figured out. But if you look at that last game, the Jets probably should have won that if they had if Zach Wilson had played better ball. That's what it comes down to. So I agree with Phil on this one too. I think we're going to take the Jets plus 3.5 at New England. And I think that it's going to be a good cover. It's going to be a good cover. They're going to beat New England, take them up to 7-3, which is just way above what we thought. And it should be a pretty good game. Lock of the week. Washington. I don't know what's going on with these guys. They're not a really great team, but their defense is solid. And my man, I like to drink a Heineke. Um, you know, he's been okay. He's getting the job done. He's not a great quarterback, but he's better than Wentz, let's be honest. And they're just winning games without Wentz and with this guy. So they're playing a Houston team that, every time I say that they're still in a game, they're going to be close. This is going to be a close game for Houston. It's not. And then every time when I think they're going to get blown out, they get blown out. So the game's in Houston. Washington's favored by 2.5 points. It seems like pretty easy cover. I mean, if Washington can't win this game by 3 points, there's a problem. They've got a great kicker. I think he kicked 2 50-yard field goals last week. So the guy can kick. I think one was a 58-yarder. So it should be a lock of 2.5 points. You only need a field goal to win this game. So Browns plus 8, Jets plus 3.5, and the lock Washington minus 2.5. I like them. I really like Phil's lock. When we look at how Phil did last week, and I didn't even look at that. And I can't remember. He was so excited about last week. I guess he did something well. He went 4-0 in college, which is incredible. So he's now 19, 11-1, 5-5 with locks of the week. Then with NFL, he actually went 3-1 again, 6-3 in his best bet. So the guy's still having a strong NFL season. Now, can he keep that momentum going? That's the real question. And I hope so. Because I, like all of you out there, want to win a lot of money. And I think this might be a great week to do so. So those are the picks. And I wanted to end it with one more thing. And this is, I don't even know where to start. I don't know how to explain this, but the other day, Pete Rose sends a letter to Rob Manfred begging him to reinstate him so he can be in the Hall of Fame. The guy is 81 years old. I think he just wants to see himself in the hall before he's gone. And again, this is like my argument from before. You got to base it on what the guy did on the field. And this guy was an unbelievable baseball player. He's all-time hit leader. He's Charlie Hustle. He was just an unbelievable baseball player. He's a crappy human being, plain and simple. And it's really odd because when he went back to the Reds for their, I don't know what they were doing, some kind of recognition of some old teams or whatever, and he was there and he was on the field. The guy was kind of a jackass, and he was asked something about an alleged rape that he had with a girl, or an affair he had with this girl that was underage. I don't even know what it was. I can't remember. And he was just a complete idiot about it. He was just rude and mean. The guy is just not a good person. And so, it really makes it a very, very difficult argument when a guy just behaves like such a jackass. It's like he couldn't admit that he bet on baseball, and then he finally admitted he bet on baseball, and then he's trying to be a good guy and trying to get reinstated, and then they say no, you're not reinstated, and then he shows his true colors again and becomes a big a-hole. And I don't know. It's so difficult. I mean, I would vote to put him in based on his career, but he's not a good guy. He's hated like Albert Bell is hated, but I still think it's based on your body of work. So I say put him in. But I got to be honest, I'm so dismayed and disappointed at his behavior. If you're going to act a certain way, then act a certain way. If you want to get in the Hall of Fame, get your head out of your ass. Stop making stupid comments. Do the right thing. Get yourself into the Hall of Fame. But you're not doing the right thing. Oh, this time I'm really sorry. This time I really understand my actions and how they were wrong. And I'm begging you, I'm urging you, please reconsider. I mean, my God, dude, how many times are you going to do this? Act like a guy that really wants to get in the Hall of Fame. Anybody can say anything. Actions speak louder than words. That's all I'm saying to you, Pete Rose. Take that advice, and maybe you'll get in the Hall of Fame one day. So we'll see. Anyway, thanks everybody. I'm sorry that Phil wasn't here and you had to just listen to me ramble on for the last hour or so, which has actually been kind of fun. I got to be honest with you, although my throat definitely hurts. I need a drink, and I don't have a drink anywhere near me. But if you like us, follow us, listen to us. If you don't like us, follow us, listen to us. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell people you like, especially tell people you don't like. Oh, I don't like this person. Let me tell them to listen to the Phil and Mike podcast. They're going to love us. They're going to love us. We're having fun with it all the time. I wanted to make sure I got something in this week because I think there was a lot of important topics, a lot of exciting things. So everybody enjoy your weekend. Have a great time. Get excited. The holiday season is right around the corner. Next week is Thanksgiving. I cannot wait. I'm going to put on my Joey from Friends maternity pants so my stomach can expand. I'm not going to put the turkey on my head and start dancing with the sunglasses, but although that would be kind of funny, but I don't think anybody would want to eat it. Plus, who wants a turkey on their head? That is nasty. Ooh, God, I couldn't imagine. But anyway, thanks for tuning in, and I'll look forward to talking to everybody next week. And hopefully Phil is back with some great news from Qatar. I can't even believe he's there. Anyway, guys, thanks so much for tuning in. Catch you later.